They say power is lost through weakness, but that's not really how it happens, is it? Power is lost the moment emotion takes over. One outburst, one petty argument, one reaction you didn't think through. And suddenly, everything you've been building, your respect, your leverage, your image, can crumble in seconds. Because in that moment, you're no longer thinking, you're feeling. And the man who is feeling, instead of thinking, is not in control. He's being controlled. The world doesn't need chains or cages anymore. It doesn't need to physically restrain you. It just has to make you angry, jealous, offended, obsessed. It just has to make you care more than you should. That's how modern power works. Not through open domination, but through psychological manipulation. The strongest mind today isn't the loudest or the most emotional. It's the one that stays still while everyone else burns. Machiavelli saw this centuries before social media, headlines, and algorithms. He watched rulers lose kingdoms over insults. He watched leaders collapse, not because their enemies were stronger, but because their emotions were. He realized something most people still haven't understood. The person who controls your emotional state controls you. Look around. Every outrage headline is bait. Every breaking news alert is bait. Every comment, war online, is bait. All of it designed for one purpose, to pull a reaction out of you. And when you bite, when you explode, when you respond out of anger, fear, hurt, or pride, you think you're being powerful. You think you're standing up for yourself or speaking your truth. But what you're really doing is performing your own obedience. You're dancing on strings someone else is pulling. That's the invisible leash of this age. Not censorship, not violence, emotion. The question is no longer who has power. The real question is who controls how you feel. Because once you gain control over your emotions, something changes. No ruler, no boss, no system, no insult has the same hold on you. They might still talk, they might still provoke, but they can't move you like before. That's what this transformation is about. How Machiavelli understood emotional control. How he used it to outthink enemies, command loyalty, and stay untouchable in chaos. And how you can build that same stillness in a world designed to keep you triggered. Somewhere along the way, weakness started calling itself authenticity. Men began to confuse emotional honesty with emotional exposure. You were told that dumping every feeling you have makes you deep, that every wound you share makes you profound. Speak your truth. Be vulnerable. Open up more. That's the gospel of the modern age. But there's a hidden line under that message. Make yourself easy to read. Make yourself easy to control. Scroll through your feed. Everyone is preaching the same sermon. Feel more. Be outraged. Be hurt. Be offended. Be endlessly empathetic. Be endlessly available. The system doesn't want you thinking. It wants you reacting. Because a thinking man is dangerous, he steps back. He questions. He sees the game. But an emotional man, he's easy. He's predictable. He's programmable. The modern world simply refined what the princes of the Renaissance already knew. The easiest way to rule people is to rule their emotions. You don't need an army to control a man if you can control how he feels. You don't need a prison if he'll lock himself inside his own guilt, his own shame, his own rage. And if you can make him proud of his emotional volatility, if you can convince him that his dramatic reactions are his real self, then he'll never question the leash around his neck. That's the dark genius of it. You're not just emotional, you're proud of being emotional. And pride is the glue that keeps the chains tight. Machiavelli wrote that men are moved more by appearances than by truth. In modern terms, they don't really need facts. They need feelings. You don't have to convince them with logic. Just hit the right emotional buttons, and they'll convince themselves. The one who shapes what people feel controls what they believe. So look carefully at the world around you. You're not just being informed. You're being conditioned. Every controversy is a hook. Every algorithm is a fisherman, and your emotions are the catch. Most men today are pieces on an emotional chessboard. They think their intensity makes them deep. They mistake volatility for depth, sensitivity for strength. But what they've actually traded is sovereignty for sympathy. They handed over their power for the chance to be seen as good, sincere, passionate. You were told emotion makes you human. But in a world built on manipulation, unchecked emotion makes you predictable, and predictability is the first step toward defeat. Real power doesn't come from expressing every emotion you feel. Real power comes from understanding every emotion that tries to control you and deciding what to do with it. It comes from choosing silence over performance, restraint over reaction, stillness over spectacle. If you want to rise above the noise, you start here. Stop reacting on command. Stop performing for an audience. Stop confusing feeling with thinking. The world worships emotion because emotional men are slaves to it. You are not going to be one of them. Here's where the battle really begins. Inside your own skin. Your greatest enemy isn't the person who mocks you. It's not your boss, your ex, or the world that resists you. Your greatest enemy is the ancient wiring in your brain. The part that reacts before it thinks. Every emotion you feel, fear, anger, shame, desire, was designed for a different world. A world of predators, freezing nights, and immediate survival. Back then, reacting fast kept you alive. Now, reacting fast gets you played. When you feel threatened today, even by words or rejection, your body doesn't know the difference. It still behaves as if something is about to kill you. Your brain dumps cortisol and adrenaline into your system. Your jaw tightens. Your pulse spikes. Your vision narrows. Your body is gearing up for war. But while your body prepares to fight, your judgment leaves the room. The more emotional you become, the less strategic you become. And that's exactly what manipulators count on. They don't need to overpower you. They don't need to outthink you. All they need to do is make you emotional. Trigger the right biological sequence, and you will do the rest. You'll say something reckless. You'll reveal something personal. You'll agree to something you shouldn't. You'll apologize when you weren't even wrong. You'll hand them the power without realizing you're doing it. That's why manipulators, politicians, media strategists, toxic partners, and even your own impulses all rely on the same principle. Control the emotion, control the man. Machiavelli warned rulers about this long before neuroscience existed. He wrote, "A man who cannot master his nature will be mastered by it." He understood that the real battlefield isn't the external world. It's the internal one. If your biology dictates your behavior, you're not a strategist. You're a puppet. And every emotion becomes a string waiting for someone smarter, calmer, or more patient to pull. Think about it. Fear makes you hesitate. Anger makes you reckless. Love makes you blind. Guilt makes you obedient. Pride makes you irrational. Every emotion, left unchecked, becomes a doorway for someone else to walk through. This is why coldness is not cruelty. It's calibration. It's the art of pausing between impulse and action. It's saying, "I feel this," and then asking, "Who benefits if I show it?" That single question separates the ruled from the ruler. Modern psychology confirms what Machiavelli knew centuries earlier. The human mind runs on two systems. One is fast, emotional, impulsive, the animal. The other is slow, rational, calculating, the strategist. Most people live entirely in the first, but the ones who rise operate from the second. They know emotion will knock on the door, but they never let it drive the carriage. Here's the real secret. Emotion is energy, but raw energy without direction is chaos. You can't erase your instincts, you're human, but you can weaponize them. Anger becomes discipline, fear becomes alertness, desire becomes drive. Every emotion has a higher form, and the strong learn to refine emotion into strategy the way metal is forged into a blade. Next time you feel provoked, someone disrespects you, challenges you, tests your ego, remember something vital. That surge of emotion isn't power. It's a chemical illusion. Your opponent doesn't need to defeat you. He just needs to make you defeat yourself. When you learn to control those chemicals, you stop responding like an ordinary man. You don't flinch when others poke you. You don't crumble when the world tries to shake you. You become someone who can stand still while others tremble. Someone who can think when everyone else reacts. That's where dominance takes root. Not in shouting or force, but in quiet, internal authority. No tyrant ever needed chains when fear would do the job. No manipulator ever needed force when guilt would do the job. And today, no system needs censorship when outrage does the job for them. This is the truth about modern control. The world doesn't rule you through power. It rules you through emotion. From ancient courts to modern corporations, every system relies on emotional engineering. They don't sell you a product, they sell you desire. They don't give you truth, they give you fear. They don't need to silence you, they just need to make you outraged enough that you silence yourself. It's the same playbook refined over centuries. Machiavelli hinted at it when he wrote that men are moved more by fear of punishment than by hope of reward. The modern world perfected that insight. Look at the emotional triggers used today. Fear keeps you obedient. Outrage keeps you distracted. Guilt keeps you compliant. Hope keeps you coming back for more. Once emotion takes over, logic shuts off. That's the moment others win. You think you're acting from principle, but you're actually responding to someone else's script. You think you're fighting the system, but they already predicted that reaction. That's why the calm man is so dangerous. He is unreadable. He doesn't give manipulators an entry point. They throw fear, he doesn't flinch. They offer temptation, he doesn't leap. They insult him, he doesn't react. And then suddenly their whole strategy collapses. Because silence isn't passive. Silence is resistance. It starves the manipulator's power source, your reaction. Look closely at every domain of life: politics, relationships, negotiations, social media, friendships. All manipulators study the same thing: emotional triggers. What makes you feel small? What makes you feel seen? What makes you angry enough to forget reason? Once they find your entry point, they don't need to argue or persuade. They just need to press the right emotional button. That's why detachment isn't numbness. It's armor. It means you stop bleeding every time someone pokes your ego. The manipulator's greatest fear isn't exposure, it's indifference. When you no longer react, you no longer serve their purpose. When you stay still instead of exploding, the game ends. You can't out-talk a manipulator. You can't out-feel them. You can't out-react them. They live in that battlefield, but you can outweight them, outwatch them, out-silence them. Emotion is their language. Composure is yours. When you speak less, pause more, and act only with intention, they lose. Their power depends on your participation, and they will notice. They will call you cold. They will call you distant. They will say you've changed. And they'll be right. Because when you stop reacting to their world, you finally begin building your own. Detachment isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, slowly, deliberately, painfully. It's not a switch you flip in a crisis. It's a muscle you train long before the storm arrives. Most men only try to be calm when chaos hits, and that's why they fail. You don't train a soldier on the battlefield. You train him in silence, in repetition, in discipline, in peace. Because here's the truth people avoid. You cannot destroy emotion. You can only reprogram your response to it. Emotion itself isn't the enemy. It's information. It's a signal from the body saying something matters. The mistake is believing that because something matters, you must react. You don't. Detachment breaks that link. It creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space, a man becomes dangerous. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He believed every man was his own kingdom, and the first rebellion you must crush is the one happening inside your own mind. He wrote that a ruler must learn how not to be good. What he meant was this: a man must learn how to act against his instincts when reason demands it. That is detachment. Acting not from emotion, but from strategy. So, how do you train it? You start with observation. Watch yourself like a general studying a battlefield. When anger rises, don't suppress it. Identify it. Ask, what exactly am I protecting? When fear hits, ask, what story am I telling myself about loss? When pride burns, ask, what weakness did this expose? The moment you question an emotion, its grip weakens. You've pulled it out of the body and into the mind. You've switched from impulse to awareness. That alone is power. Then comes restraint. Every emotion wants an outlet. Your voice, your hands, your expression, your decisions. But if you deny it once, then again and again, you'll feel something uncomfortable. Tension. That's the old self dying. The silence that follows is control being born. It's the beginning of a new identity, one that isn't moved by every wave. Restraint is where most men quit, because the modern man is addicted to emotional expression. He vents his rage online. He posts his sadness for attention. He texts out every impulsive thought. He can't sit with a single unspoken feeling. But you can, and you will, because silence turns emotion into energy, and energy withheld becomes power. Next comes distance, not numbness. Distance is simply perspective. The Stoics called it the view from above. Picture your anger as a storm miles away. You see lightning, you hear thunder, but you're not inside it anymore. That's detachment. It's the shift from I am angry to I notice anger, from I am afraid to I observe fear. One makes you a slave, the other makes you sovereign. Even modern neuroscience backs this up. Studies show that labeling emotions, literally saying, I feel anger, reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's emotional command center. Machiavelli didn't have fMRI machines, but he understood this principle intuitively. A calm ruler can bend chaos into order simply by refusing to let instinct and impulse govern him. Finally, you practice silence. Every time you speak from emotion, you leak power. Every time you react too quickly, you surrender position. So don't rush to reply. Don't rush to defend yourself. Don't rush to prove anything. Wait until your voice belongs to your mind again, not your nerves. That's how fearlessness is built, not by killing fear, but by controlling timing. Detachment isn't coldness. It's warmth under discipline. It's the man who feels everything but reveals nothing until it serves his purpose. In a world screaming for attention and reaction, the man who doesn't flinch becomes almost godlike. Not because he's emotionless, but because he's still thinking while everyone else is losing themselves. The world mistakes calmness for weakness. They see the man who doesn't rush, who doesn't bark back, who doesn't get provoked, and they assume he's passive. But calm is not the absence of emotion. Calm is presence of power. Because while everyone else is reacting, the calm man is reading. While others defend themselves, he observes. While others burn energy explaining, apologizing, begging to be understood, he sits back and learns everything he needs to know about them. Machiavelli said a prince must never reveal his heart, because the moment people know what moves you, what you love, what you fear, what you need, they can rule you. That's why the calm man always wins. He gives nothing away. His silence becomes a canvas where others project their assumptions, and in doing so, they expose themselves. Think of a courtroom. The lawyer who argues the least but asks one devastating question at the perfect moment. That's the one who turns the entire jury. Think about a general in the chaos of battle. Smoke, fire, noise. Yet his hands don't tremble. His soldiers look to him and feel anchored. That's leadership born from composure. Even in everyday life, in arguments, relationships, business, negotiations, the calm man dictates the tempo. He moves slower than others expect, speaks less than others want, and reacts less than others assume. Every pause becomes a tactic. Every silence becomes a mirror. And the more the world tries to read him, the more it reveals itself. Psychology calls this emotional asymmetry, the dynamic where one person's calm destabilizes the other's emotional state. When you refuse to mirror someone's anger or insecurity, they lose rhythm. Anger unreturned becomes confusion. Mockery unanswered becomes insecurity. Manipulation ignored becomes weakness. This is the invisible war of composure, and most people lose it without even knowing they were playing. This is why the emotionless man rises in every hierarchy. In business, he's the executive who never panics when a crisis hits. In relationships, he's the one who never chases, never begs, never clings. In negotiation, he's the man who never reveals desperation. He wins not by talking more, but by waiting longer. Not by reacting faster, but by reacting last. Not by showing emotion, but by showing control. There's a certain gravity to a man like that, a sense that nothing external can move him. People respect it instinctively, even if they can't explain why. It's not charisma. Charisma attracts. Composure commands. And the paradox is this: the emotionless man still feels deeply. He just channels emotion differently. Fear becomes focus. Pain becomes fuel. Love becomes patience. He doesn't kill his feelings. He refines them. Where others chase drama, he chases silence. Where others explode, he inhales. Where others react, he calculates. He lives in the delay, the half-second between impulse and action. And that's where all power hides. Because while the world is still trying to provoke him, he has already chosen his move. In every interaction, one person sets the emotional tone, and it's almost always the calm one. That's the law. The most composed man in the room decides the rules of the encounter. He sets the rhythm, the pace, the atmosphere. Everyone else subconsciously adjusts to him. And once you understand this, you stop trying to dominate others. You simply stop being dominated. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, don't fight the urge to react. Observe it. Pause. Let the silence expand. Move slower. Because the man who moves last always moves best. That's the emotionless edge. The ability to make others reveal themselves while you remain unreadable. The strength to act strategically when emotion would have made you weak. The quiet confidence that makes the loudest rooms fall still. Emotion isn't your enemy. It's raw data, unfiltered information about what matters to you. The problem is that most men never learn how to read their own data. They let emotion steer them, crash them, and then they blame the world for the wreckage. But emotion mastered, translated, refined, is the most precise navigation system a strategist can possess. Machiavelli never said to eliminate emotion. He said to govern it. He understood that a ruler who feels nothing becomes cruel, but a ruler who feels too much becomes weak. Power exists in the balance, to feel fully, but act selectively. Take fear, for example. Most men freeze. They imagine every worst-case scenario. Their own mind becomes their prison. But to a strategist, fear is reconnaissance. Fear reveals your weaknesses. It shows you what you value. If you sit with fear instead of running from it, fear turns into clarity. It shows you what must be fortified, confronted, or abandoned. Or take anger. Uncontrolled, anger destroys credibility. It makes you sloppy. But refined through discipline, anger becomes propulsion. It becomes momentum. Napoleon understood this when he said the greatest general is the one who can turn his passions into calculation. Even love, often seen as the most compromising emotion, can be weaponized when disciplined. Love, when clean and uncorrupted by insecurity, is focus. It is devotion. It's the willingness to sacrifice distraction for purpose. Love becomes dangerous only when it's fused with neediness. So instead of asking, "Who do I love?" ask, "What am I willing to invest in even when no one sees it?" That's purpose, love without ego. Machiavelli's genius was not coldness, it was awareness. He didn't reject emotion, he studied it like a map. He watched men lose battles because pride made them reckless. He watched allies betray each other because envy blinded them. He watched rulers fall because guilt made them too forgiving. He saw that emotion was the most predictable force in human nature and the most easily exploited. That's why the calm man is so effective. When someone yells, he doesn't yell back, he studies. When someone flatters him, he doesn't bask, he questions. When someone betrays him, he doesn't retaliate, he remembers. That's emotional strategy. It's patience disguised as power. A Machiavellian mind operates one layer above everyone else. He doesn't suppress emotion, he translates it. Every feeling becomes a cipher. What is this emotion trying to tell me? Is this fear pointing to a weakness? Is this jealousy revealing what I secretly desire? Is this anger showing me where I gave up control? Once you understand this, emotion stops ruling you. It starts serving you. You begin to see why most people live predictable lives. Their emotions are predictable. Trigger them with fear they hide. Trigger them with pride they chase. Trigger them with insult they explode. Trigger them with praise they obey. But when you master emotional translation, no one can puppeteer you again. You can walk through chaos, manipulation, and temptation untouched. Because every emotional spike becomes another signal you know how to read. That's what Machiavelli meant when he said the man who masters himself becomes mightier than the one who controls others. The world is burning louder every single year. Every headline is crafted to provoke you. Every platform monetizes your outrage. Every conversation, online or offline, tests your composure. Modern society doesn't reward the thoughtful. It rewards the impulsive. But history remembers the stoic, the man who stays cold in the flames. Because being calm in a chaotic age isn't apathy, it's mastery. It's the ability to remain unmoved while everyone else is enslaved by noise. That is where true power lives, not in dominance, but in discipline. Machiavelli understood this long before self-control was trending. He lived in an era of betrayals, shifting loyalties, and deadly politics. One emotional mistake could cost a prince his throne or his life. A ruler who acted from anger might wage the wrong war. A ruler who acted from guilt might trust the wrong ally. So Machiavelli taught princes to feel everything but show nothing. That was the ideal of the Stoic prince. Composure under fire. You can see this pattern throughout history. Marcus Aurelius, holding a collapsing empire together, calmly writing, "If it's endurable, then endure it." Churchill, during bombings, puffing a cigar and saying, "Fear is a reaction, courage is a decision." Even today, the men who rise CEOs, generals, strategists are the ones who never lose the inner stillness. Why? Because when the world loses its mind, people follow the man who hasn't. So how do you build that kind of stillness? You train for chaos. You push yourself into friction, not comfort. You expose yourself to stress until it stops shocking you. Silence becomes your weapon. Routine becomes your armor. Perspective becomes your fortress. The man who doesn't need peace to stay calm carries peace with him everywhere. That's what makes him untouchable today. The Stoic prince doesn't seek attention. He earns gravity. He doesn't rush to defend, explain, or prove. He moves like time steady, patient, unstoppable. People will call him emotionless. What they don't understand is that he feels deeply. He's just disciplined enough not to leak it, and that unsettles people. His presence exposes their instability. They mistake his silence for superiority, but in reality, it's concentration. Focus so sharp that the world bends around it. Any man can build this. You start small. You sit still when you want to scroll. You breathe when you want to argue. You walk away when you want to prove your point. You say nothing when silence will speak louder. And slowly, without noticing when it happened, you stop reacting. You stop giving away your position. You stop letting others puppeteer you with their emotions. The Stoic prince isn't born. He's forged in boredom, in frustration, in discipline, in silence, and in a world that worships emotional display, restraint becomes rebellion. That's why modern Stoicism is an ancient philosophy. It's survival strategy. Because when you stay calm while the world tries to provoke you, you win every invisible battle before they even begin. You're no longer controlled by outrage. You're no longer dragged by distraction. You become a fixed point in a spinning world, and everything else adjusts to you. That's what Machiavelli meant when he said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." He didn't mean terror. He meant self-control. Control over yourself so absolute that others cannot steer you. That's how you stay cold in a burning world, not by running from the fire, but by walking through it without flinching. You live in an age where emotion is currency, outrage is profitable, distraction is engineered, and attention is the battlefield. Every notification is a test. Every insult is a trap. Every opinion is an invitation to lose your power. That's why this mindset is urgent. Calmness isn't an aesthetic. It's a weapon. If you can remain composed while others collapse, you become rare. And rarity commands power. So move quietly, listen closely, speak deliberately, and when the world tries to shake you, smile. You already know how to stand still in fire. In the end, everything returns to one truth. A man who controls his emotions controls his fate. The world will continue to provoke you, tempt you, distract you, and whisper for your reaction. But you're no longer the man who dances when the world pulls the strings. You're the one who cuts them. Your silence has weight. Your stillness has meaning, and your calm is no longer an accident. It's a decision. Walk through life with that discipline, that presence, that unshakable inner gravity. Let others burn themselves out with noise. You move with certainty, with intention, with strategy. Because the man who stays centered in chaos becomes the one others look to for direction. Stay cold, stay focused, stay sovereign.